before the Olympians rose, before Zeus claimed the thunder, before even the Titans sealed their rule. There were older forces moving quietly through the boundaries of the world, forces that walked not in bright temples or atop sunlit peaks, but in the shadows between things, between day and night, between life and death, between choice and destiny. Among these ancient powers, none stood with more mystery, more reverence, or more fear than Hecate, the luminous torchbearer who lights the darkest threshold. She is the goddess who stands where roads diverge, where spirits wander, where the veil thins. A guardian of crossroads, a keeper of secrets, and a sovereign of magic older than Olympus itself. The Greeks called her Enodia, she who walks the roads. They called her Propylaia, she who guards the gates. They called her Phosphoros, she who brings the light. And yet she rules over the very forces that terrify mortals most: witchcraft, necromancy, ghosts, and the hidden realms of the night. And unlike many older deities who were diminished when Zeus ascended, Hecate was honored, respected, and uniquely empowered by the king of the gods, a rare privilege, granted only to a few. Tonight, we step into her world, a world lit by flickering torches, haunted by whispers carried on the midnight wind, and shaped by a goddess who remains one of the most enigmatic figures in the entire Greek pantheon. This is the story of Hecate, the witch goddess, the guardian of thresholds, the keeper of keys, and the silent companion to every soul who has ever stood at a crossroads. According to Hesiod's Theogony, one of the oldest sources we possess, Hecate was born to the Titan Perses and the Titaness Asteria. Perses, though little described, was associated with destruction and the breaking of boundaries, while Asteria, the starry one, was a goddess of falling stars, prophecies, dreams, and the night sky itself. From the union of these two came a daughter whose nature reflected both parents, a goddess who moved fluently between the realms of light and shadow, who knew the pathways of the sky and the secrets hidden beneath the earth, and who possessed dominion where other gods held none. But Hecate's story goes deeper than genealogy. Hesiod's telling makes one thing absolutely clear. Hecate was not diminished in the rise of the Olympians. After the Titanomachy, Zeus redistributed power to secure Olympian rule. While many titans fell, were cast down, or stripped of their domains, Hecate alone was honored above all by Zeus himself. Hesiod writes that Zeus granted her a privilege almost unheard of. She retained all the powers she had before, and she was given a share in the domains of the sky, the sea, and the earth. Her power was not confined to a single realm. She belonged everywhere and nowhere. This tells us something profound. Hecate is not an Olympian in rank, nor is she bound to the fate of the Titans. She stands outside these classifications, a liminal force who exists between cosmic orders, answering to neither side, occupying a position no other deity holds. Some scholars argue that Hecate's worship predates even the Homeric age, hinting at echoes of ancient Anatolian or Minoan traditions, absorbed into Greek religion long before the myths were formalized. Others point to her mother Asteria's association with the night sky and divination, suggesting that Hecate inherited a sacred, otherworldly role linked to prophecy, magic, dream travel, and celestial knowledge. Whatever her true origin, one thing is certain: Hecate did not earn her dominion. She did not win it in war, nor seize it by force. She inherited a power older than Olympus, and was the only one of her kin permitted to keep it. A goddess fully independent, fully sovereign, fully liminal. No ancient source tells us the color of Hecate's hair, the shape of her face, or the sound of her voice. The Greeks did not preserve her beauty, they preserved her function. What mattered was not how she looked, but where she stood. She is not simply a goddess of something, she is a goddess across things, across realms, across boundaries, across the thresholds that separate one state of being from another. Her power is liminal, fluid, and ancient. Hesiod describes Hecate as possessing honors in the sky, the sea, and the earth, a scope of power unmatched by nearly any other deity. But unlike Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades, Hecate does not rule these realms through force or sovereignty. Her dominion is symbolic and mystical. In the sky, she governs light that moves through darkness, torches, stars, omens. In the sea, she rules over its hidden, shifting, unpredictable depths. In the earth, she governs crossroads, boundaries, tombs, and the wandering dead. Where the great gods rule by decree, Hecate rules by presence. In the ancient world, the crossroads were not places of simple travel. They were believed to be points where the worlds touched, where spirits could wander, where choices carried destiny, and where danger and opportunity intertwined. Hecate presided over these places as a guardian and a witness. Shrines to her were placed where three roads met, and in many regions she was depicted with three faces, each watching a different path, symbolizing the past, the present, and the future, or the mortal realm, the divine realm, and the underworld. Her torches illuminated not just the road, but the consequences of the choices made there. Hecate is also widely known as sovereign of magic and witchcraft. Hecate's association with magic is ancient, and unlike many deities whose roles were shaped gradually, Hecate's connection to sorcery appears early and decisively. She is invoked in spells for protection, spells for binding, spells for prophecy, healing rites, necromantic rituals, and invocations of transformation. She was the patroness of herbalists, midwives, seers, and practitioners of the arcane arts, those who worked with forces unseen and stood between life and death's threshold. Her knowledge of herbs and poisons appears in the myths of Medea and Circe, both of whom were said to learn their craft from Hecate's lineage. To the Greeks, Hecate was not merely a witch, she was the source of witchcraft. Hecate is also known as keeper of ghosts and the underworld paths. Though not a queen of the dead like Persephone, nor a ruler like Hades, Hecate traveled freely through the underworld as a guide, a companion, and a guardian spirit. She appears in the Homeric Hymn to Demeter as the only deity who witnesses the abduction of Persephone, and later becomes her constant companion. Her presence during nocturnal rituals, her invocation during funerary rites, and her ancient role as a psychopompic figure made her a bridge between the living and the dead. Hecate is also known as the torchbearer of the night. Hecate is almost always shown carrying two torches, illuminating the unseen. In mythology, light is often a symbol of revelation, truth, or divinity. But Hecate's light is something different. It reveals what is hidden, not what is celebrated. It shows truths that most would rather avoid, lighting the path through fear, loss, and the unknown. She is the goddess who walks beside those who travel in darkness, not to remove the darkness, but to help them survive it. If these ancient stories speak to you, subscribe to Ancient Untold Stories. Next, we descend into her encounters with titans, witches, and the underworld. Hecate does not appear in Greek myth as frequently as the Olympians, yet each appearance is striking, quiet, potent, and revealing. Her myths do not revolve around dramatic battles or passionate affairs. Instead, they show her as a constant presence in moments of transition, danger, and transformation. In the Homeric Hymn to Demeter, Hecate plays a role both subtle and profound. When Persephone is taken by Hades, the earth swallows her so swiftly that few hear her cries. But Hecate, roaming the boundary between worlds, hears the maiden's voice echoing through the darkness. She approaches Demeter carrying her torches, not with certainty, but with knowledge born of the night. "I heard her cries," she says, "but I did not see who took her." It is a rare moment in Greek myth, a goddess of shadows becoming a beacon for another goddess in anguish. After Persephone is returned, Hecate becomes her companion and attendant, walking with her as she moves between the upper world and the realm of the dead. This is not a subordinate role. It is symbolic of Hecate's nature. She alone can accompany a goddess between life and death's threshold. In later mythic traditions, Hecate becomes deeply entwined with two of the most famous sorceresses in Greek literature, Circe and Medea. Both are described variously as daughters of Helios, granddaughters of Oceanus, practitioners of the oldest magical arts. Ancient authors like Apollonius Rhodius suggest that both women learned their craft through Hecate's lineage. Medea, especially, is portrayed as a priestess of Hecate, invoking the goddess by name in the Argonautica. Her spells, her potions, her rituals, all attribute their power to the goddess of witchcraft. This is one of the strongest indications that Hecate was not simply associated with magic. She was the divine origin of magical knowledge. Hesiod preserves one of the rare stories in which Hecate participates in the cosmic order of war. During the Titanomachy, the great conflict between the Olympians and the Titans, Hecate supports Zeus. This is remarkable. She is Titan-born. Her mother is a Titaness. Her ancestors fought against the Olympians, yet Hecate stands with Zeus, and her loyalty is rewarded with honor, dominion, and freedom from the punishments that befell her kin. Why? Perhaps because her power is older than the conflict. Perhaps because she did not belong to the Titan's cause. Perhaps because Zeus recognized her as indispensable. Whatever the reason, Hecate emerges from the war unique among Titan offspring, not imprisoned, not diminished, but elevated. Although associated with graveyards and spirits, Hecate also held a protective role in daily life. Many households placed small shrines, Hecatea, at their doorways to guard against restless spirits, harmful magic, misfortune, or wandering ghosts. The threshold of a home was a sacred boundary, a point where danger could enter. Hecate, standing at all thresholds, became the natural guardian. Monthly offerings of food, known as Hecate's Deipnon, were left at crossroads or outside doorways to appease her and the spirits that traveled with her. She is both feared and revered, dark yet protective, a goddess who keeps watch where others cannot. Though she does not rule the dead, Hecate's presence is invoked in necromantic rites across Greek literature. When heroes or seers sought to call upon spirits, they invoked Hecate as the one who could open the way. She stands not as a master of the dead, but as the keeper of the paths those spirits must travel. Her power here reflects her truest nature, a guide, a mediator, a goddess whose strength lies not in ruling, but in revealing. To the ancient Greeks, myth was never merely a story. It was a language, a way of explaining the forces that move beneath the surface of the world. Hecate, perhaps more than any other deity, embodies this symbolic dimension. Her myths are few, yet her symbols are rich, layered, and powerful, reflecting a goddess who exists not in singular form, but in multiplicity. One of the most enduring images of Hecate is her three-bodied or three-faced form. Though not universal, it becomes prominent by the classical period and reflects her dominion over boundaries. These three forms look in different directions, standing at a crossroads, representing the world of the living, the world of the gods, and the world of the dead. Or, in another interpretation, the past, the present, and the future. Unlike the later, modern idea of a triple goddess, Hecate's threefold nature in antiquity does not represent maiden mother crone imagery. Instead, it represents omniscience across thresholds, a divine awareness that sees more than any single perspective allows. Hecate is not three personalities. She is one consciousness, expanded across the boundaries of time, space, and fate. Hecate's defining attribute is liminality, the state of being in between. In ancient belief, the most dangerous places were not deep forests or high mountains. They were the edges, doors, gates, crossroads, tombs, shorelines, caves, borders, and transitions, where something ends and something else begins. Such places were vulnerable to spirits, omens, and the unknown. And because of this, the Greeks placed Hecate at every major boundary. Paths where travelers might be cursed or blessed, doorways where spirits might enter, crossroads where destiny changes, the moment of birth, the instant of death, and the passages the soul crosses after death. This is why her power spans so many domains. It is not elemental, it is situational. Where other gods rule a realm, Hecate rules the transitions between realms. Another of Hecate's symbols is the torch. Most gods who carry light use it to display glory, truth, or revelation. Hecate's torches are different. They illuminate the unseen, the spectral, the buried, the forbidden, the emotional landscapes that mortals fear to confront. Her light does not dispel the darkness. It makes the darkness navigable. Symbolically, her torches represent knowledge of the hidden, the power to walk the shadowed path, and the capacity to survive transformation. This is why she appears in myths, not as a ruler, but as a guide. Keys are another of her symbols. Hecate is frequently depicted holding keys, a symbol of her power to open doors between the worlds. The key is not a tool of ownership, but a tool of permission. A reminder that some doors open only to those who understand the cost. One of Hecate's most ancient associations is with dogs, especially black dogs, whose howls were believed to accompany her approach. In ancient belief, dogs could perceive spirits and warn of supernatural presence. Their connection to Hecate reflects her role as a psychopompic guide and a guardian against restless souls. Hecate was not originally a moon goddess, but by the Hellenistic period, she becomes closely linked to lunar symbolism, especially the new moon and dark phases. This association aligns with her essence, the unseen, the transitional, the space before renewal. To understand Hecate's place in ancient religion, one must look not to the grand temples of Greece, but to the liminal spaces, doorways, crossroads, caves, and thresholds, places where danger and possibility intertwined. Hecate's sanctuaries were rarely in the city center. They were found in caves, at city gates, on lonely roads, at three-way crossroads, or along coastal cliffs. These places were chosen not for grandeur, but because they were boundaries, points where different worlds touched. In some regions, nighttime ceremonies asked Hecate to protect travelers or ward off malevolent spirits. Hecate is one of the few deities whose presence deepens as Greek religion evolves. Where many gods faded or shifted in meaning over the centuries, Hecate's influence grew wider, darker, and more complex, expanding from a household guardian and liminal protectress into one of the central figures of ancient magic and esoteric ritual. Her evolution reflects not inconsistency, but adaptability, a goddess whose nature is flexible enough to inhabit multiple layers of belief without contradiction. During the early and classical periods, Hecate's worship remained largely domestic, apotropaic, warding off harm, and transitional, crossroads, doorways, boundaries. But as Greek society changed, so too did perceptions of the domains she governed. The Hellenistic world brought increased interest in astrology, the occult, mystery cults, dream interpretation, and philosophical cosmology. In this era, Hecate's nature expanded dramatically. She became a central figure in Orphic traditions, magical rites, protective incantations, and theurgic practices seeking communion with divine forces. Her triple-formed statues became more common, reflecting an elevated metaphysical complexity. She is depicted with torches, keys, daggers, serpents, symbols of access to realms inaccessible to ordinary mortals. Her association with the moon also becomes more prominent, particularly the darker lunar phases that symbolize both mystery and renewal. One of the most important sources for understanding her later evolution is the Greek magical papyri, a collection of spells, hymns, and ritual texts from roughly the 2nd century BCE to 5th century CE. Here, Hecate is invoked frequently, not as a minor goddess, but as a cosmic force whose names, titles, and epithets reflect awe and fear. She is called the one before the gates, she of the crossroads, she who walks the night, queen of those below, bringer of torches, she of the three ways. These texts depict a goddess who commands immense respect, capable of influencing dreams, spirits, visions, and transitions. Yet even in these magical sources, she is not malicious. She is invoked for protection, knowledge, and guidance through perilous spiritual transformations. When the Romans absorbed Greek religion, they identified Hecate with Trivia. By this time, her cult had spread widely through Asia Minor, mainland Greece, and the Roman Empire. It is important to separate historical depictions of Hecate from much later interpretations that appear in modern occultism. In antiquity, Hecate was a liminal goddess, a protector of households, a guardian of thresholds, and a guide in death and darkness. Her association with torches, keys, dogs, crossroads, and necromancy is ancient and well attested. Her association with lunar phases, cosmic power, and esoteric rites grows stronger in the Hellenistic and Roman eras, but remains within historical context. The maiden mother crone framework, however, is not ancient Greek and does not appear in classical mythology. Hecate's triple form existed long before this interpretation and symbolized spatial orientation, vision across realms, and liminality, not life stages. Despite the rise of new religions and cultural shifts, Hecate is one of the few ancient goddesses whose presence remained steady across centuries. Her worship never relied on imperial power, grand temples, or political alliances. Instead, it lived in the private spaces of life. She endured because she governed something universal: transition, mystery, and the unseen paths of fate. If these ancient stories speak to you, subscribe to Ancient Untold Stories and tell me in the comments which aspect of Hecate calls to you most.